spread a little aloha around the world. At Breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob, our Not Quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Master Spas. As fuels go longer, Hoka Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, DeBoer Wetsuits, Quintana Roo, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, 2004 Olympic rower, pro cyclist on Team Ineos, also Ironman champion. I don't think anybody has those three things on their resume. Mr. Cameron Wurf joins us. How you doing, Cam?
Good, thanks, Bob. I feel like I've been on this show so many times that I really need to start achieving some more significant introduction.
I think you've done plenty. I was actually adding up all these Ironman events since 2016. I think you've done 30 iron distance races.
Yeah. I mean, I've done well. It's a bit annoying this year because I went to South Africa and they had the swim,
the mini swim,
shortened. Yeah, the mini swim. It's amazing, isn't it? Because you just feel like that's like a fate. You didn't really do an Ironman. I understand now. I sympathise with the age groupers when Ironman are forced to make changes to the course, because even myself, I was like, oh, damn, that doesn't even count. It's not a real one.
I still count it. So, it's supposed to be an Ironman. They shortened it. What the hell? But so
I think when you run a marathon, you probably deserve to have a count.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know many elite marathoners who I said, hey, since 2016, how many marathons have you run? They go 20 or 30. That's a lot of freaking marathons. I know you were starting at ground zero with running, but how have you been able to stay healthy putting all those marathons together over a very short period of time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was starting from ground zero, so I wasn't running very fast. So you don't do a lot of damage to your body when you're running the 315s, the 310s, the 305s, the threes, even the high 250s. It's not till you started getting down the lower 250s that you feel like you need a bit of a break afterwards. You really need to let the legs recover. But until that point, yeah, I mean, it's basically just I guess a good long run pace. I probably feel like I could do every week, to be honest. It's not overly strenuous, and I also haven't tried to extend myself. I've never really tried to run hard, like flat out, because I've been so afraid of injury. I came into the sport late. At the time, I had no idea how many years I had in it ahead of me. I couldn't afford to have 6 weeks off or 3 months off or whatever, 6 months off for a bad injury. So I've been very cautious. I've been very proactive with, stretching and strength and conditioning just to keep everything, in shape. And it's actually like right now I'm doing this from London Heathrow. I've actually been just here in London for a day with Nike, just basically doing a checkup on that. I mean, I've also been very lucky to work very closely with them and their top team of physical, of strength and conditioning, high performance crew that have, monitored what I'm doing and sort of kept the lid on me. I mean, I do what they tell me, and they certainly never recommend that I do anything to, that's going to put me at risk. And I literally have not had a single injury as a result of running, the whole time. So, I'm inclined to continue to follow their guidance.
So you just Ironman France, 4th place. Is that course going to be the same course for Ironman Worlds?
Yeah, it is. Well, in theory, they're adding 10K. The bike course was talking about not really an Ironman. The bike course was only 170 kilometers that day, so there's an additional out and back, but that part's basically flat. But the bike course, yes, is identical. I guess the run course is the same. Swim, obviously the same. Yeah. So, it was really great to do that. This year I've been 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So I've really, I'd obviously prefer to end up with the 1st now for my next race as opposed to a 6th. So feel in the top 5. So that would be a really perfect season. So hopefully ideally that's a really good omen heading into the World Championships.
So what did you take away from that? Basically pre-riding the course, because what do you think? Does this suit you?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, in theory, a course like that with, much more challenging, it's sort of become evident the last, number of years as we've had, I guess, more of the ITU group come across. The dynamics of racing have really changed. The front part of the race really moves quite quickly, and if you miss it, you're out of it, and I realized that. And I've been caught out with that a bit obviously last year in Kona, but this year in Nice, the course is one that dynamic, okay, of course the group can establish themselves, but at the end of the day, everyone's going to have to touch the pedals almost the same amount on that climb. There's going to be very little, assistance, if any, of sticking together with people. The climbs are steep enough that everyone has to actually pedal under their own steam. So, I guess, of course, I'm more comfortable with a man-on-man battle, in that regard, rather than having to fight the dynamics of the race as well. So, I've always been a relatively good climber for my size, even at the World Tour level. And, technically, I don't ever get dropped descending, racing in the World Tour. In fact, I can sometimes be one of the better descenders in the World Tour. So, of course, I have to be confident. I mean, but, I'm also very respectful of the fact that it's an Ironman. You have to swim 3.8 kilometers first, then run a marathon afterwards. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But, I'm really chomping at the bit and quite excited about it. I'm taking it very seriously. I did that race for a reason. I wanted to do it racing. It's very different pre-riding a course and just going at your own leisurely pace and having a look at it and see what it's like. I mean, of course, you can understand how long the climbs are, etc. But it's nice to have been able to feel, having done an Ironman a week before, I obviously was quite fatigued, how it's going to feel when you're struggling, and the moments and the parts of the course that are difficult and know that they're coming, psychologically, that can be a huge advantage because you're always going to have those difficult moments. And so I felt them under a fair bit of strain. And ideally, when I rock up to Nice fresh, I'll have my tail up and hit it with a fair bit more gusto.
So when you do that race, are you were you racing the bike course, or are you just sort of checking out the bike course?
Yeah, I was really checking it out. I mean, I didn't want to ruin my day by trying to be a hero and trying to blow everyone away at the start of the bike or anything like that, or at all on the bike. I was more concerned about getting through the bike course, at a strong pace to get some relevant data. As it turned out, I did blow up pretty badly on the final climb before we started the big long descent. Like really lights out. Like I was in a lot of difficulty there. I mean, that's natural. I mean, it did an Ironman the week before. You're obviously running on vapors, and there's only so much the body can take. And but fortunately, that was sort of the end of the hardest part of the bike. So we were able to get very good data. That was the one thing. I didn't want to blow up early and it'd be a waste of time, basically. So, I was very surprised that I was able to ride away from those guys, considering, how strong Christian Hoggenhag is. And of course, Clement Mignon, who went on to win. I was very shocked. To put it in perspective, if you compare it to Lanzarote, my power was around 40 watts lower on average, than it was that day. But of course, everyone knows in Lanzarote there was a bit of a macho man contest going on between me and a certain other individual who's turned into an aquathon athlete. And of course, we probably pushed both of us pushed the pedals, probably obviously, because I didn't have a very good race and he couldn't even get to the finish line. So it was important to me to just do a good steady race, which I did do, which sort of in that case meant that I did it quite a lot below, I guess, my capacity would normally be. But it was very great to get that relevant data across the whole course and also get a chance to see it, because there's a lot more climbing in it than there used to be. There used to be more out and backs on the course, and now there's a couple of extra climbs, a couple of extra drags here and there. And it's really challenging. It's really challenging. I think people underestimate it.
And when you look at the times, obviously people are going to be out there a lot longer than they would be in Kona.
Yeah, I mean, I took 4.5 hours and it was 10K short. So even if you say best case scenario, maybe it's 4.5 hours, you'll have to ride really quite hard to, to go that fast. And also produce 50 kilometers. I mean, if you just think about that, I mean, you're nearly, climbing up Holy-Locker or, one of these massive volcanoes,
Right.
Mauna Kea in Kona. I mean, it's a huge amount of climbing. It's a 2.5 hours of, you've got no choice, but you have to apply, a good steady amount of force if you want to stay in touch with the race. So you're going to obviously have people having to make a decision. Do they, try and go with the front of the race, for example, or do they back their running legs to be able to run down whatever gap it is? But I'm quite excited to see how it all plays out. I mean, obviously for me personally, it'd be nice if it turned into a bike race dynamic and everyone's just trying to beat the crud out of each other and, get to the run and see what happens.
Well, you've shown that you run so consistently, no matter how hard the bike is, 259, 256, 256. I mean, you're always right there.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that exactly because I never race, trying to save for the run. I've sort of trained to learn to do my bike leg and then run off that. And obviously my best is more in the mid 240s. And that's now I've had the opportunity, I get the opportunity this last month and the next 6 weeks to actually prepare. And I'm confident I can get back to that level. And I mean, I can't control anyone else. I can only control what I can do. But, I just want to give myself a chance to win this thing. I've been around the mark for so long, and I think if you look at all my results, I'm always consistently there, no matter what the field is, and or where the race is. And so, I just really love to have the legs to be able to finish it off, down the stretch in that last 10K.
Have you ever had this much time to prepare for the Ironman World Championship? Because in the past, Team Ineos, you've had other obligations.
Yeah, I mean, the last year, obviously, no. And then previously, it sort of always was a bit of an afterthought. I never really believed I could win it apart from 2019. And then, as we know, Italy was there, and maybe that was a bit of a disruption. But that year, I certainly had a similar preparation to what I've got now. And I've looked a lot at that to see what I did and sort of, what worked well there and what I think I can do better. I'm probably swimming more now than I was. I mean, that's one thing that, although I haven't been able to train overly consistently all year, the time that I have had at home, I've really dedicated, in the early part of the year where I'm racing the bike a lot, I've dedicated it to getting in the pool, even if it's just for 30 minutes a day, but just consistently as much as I possibly can to try and develop a good motor pattern swimming properly. And that showed. I mean, this year I've had consistently good swims in every Ironman, getting off to a really good start in the race is going to be crucial. I mean, I learned that last year in Kona, and although maybe not as crucial as Kona because of the speed of Kona, it's like you have to be there or you're out of it now. Obviously, in Nice, there's a chance you can ride yourself back into it, if you're strong enough on the bike in comparison to everyone else. Conversely, if I'm able to stay in contact on the swim, I have the opportunity to use more of the bike course to my advantage.
Exactly.
And put more pressure on the race. And obviously that is the ideal scenario for me. So to be able to just put pressure on the race, that's what I want. I just want a really hard race for everyone, not just the poor guys trying to chase to get into the race.
So Roubaix, 256K, 128th place, and then I think I'll just go for a half marathon run afterwards. That people were like, "Wait, what's he doing? 6:36 pace? How the hell do you do that when you're obviously you do that all the time? You go for runs after a stage, but Roubaix is a little different."
Yeah, I think the big difference with Roubaix was how sore your lower back and your finger does. And the difficulty was bending over to drop my shoelace, if I'm brutally honest. I mean, once I got them on, standing up straight was quite nice. It was actually quite nice to stand up straight finally and stretch the legs and stretch out all the joints. And I didn't even look at the clock. I did when it got dark and it was 19K, and I was like, well, I can't just do 19K. So I ran backwards and forwards in a bit of light that I had there on the side of the road and got to 21. And I didn't think it was that big a deal. I mean, I thought it was funny, but far out. I mean, the people, it's like, it's been the thing that I've done this year. I mean, that's the thing that everyone talks about. So
exactly.
Obviously I'd like to, do something in Nice that's even more spectacular and have people maybe think that was the nucleus for making that happen. Because, doing something like that, it's our sport, isn't it? It's psychological. Of course I was tired. I mean, there is no harder one-day bike race on the planet. And not only that, but I spend the first half of it, in the wind, trying to help my teammates and do what I can. And then obviously after that, you sort of just ride into the finish. You're not really too concerned about your placing. But yeah, the part about putting the shoes on afterwards when you're tired, you got tired legs. That's what Ironman's all about. I mean, you have to run, and you have to run reasonably well when your body doesn't want to do it. I mean, you got to train it to do that. And I really feel like, when I get to Nice, for the biggest occasion, that, sessions like that, they come back to reward you. It might not happen initially, but
right.
It's you're just constantly putting those things in the bank. So I'm glad I did it. And, I obviously want to try and make it really count come September 10th. So
when you last year, was it? I think it was last year. You were leading, right? You were leading on the cobbles at Prewriting.
Yeah. The first 3 sectors I led the team on there. Obviously, they were a bit more awake to us this year. Everyone was attacked. I mean, gosh, I remember chasing Van der Poel in that first 100K about 3 or 4 times. I mean, the guy ended up winning the race, but he was attacking from kilometer 20K, 250K to go. I mean, it was insane this year. Like, no one would let us boss it like we did last year. So It was a very different race, very different dynamic. It was just on from the start. There was a record, time again. I mean, this year, I think I 15 minutes behind was under 6 hours, which, I mean, until last year, there was never a sub 6 hour race. Now, like, the entire field is under that pace. Like, it was a brutal day. But yeah, I was just glad to get through it again, get to the velodrome. Still haven't crashed, still haven't had a flat tire in the race in 2 years. So I say, if it happens once, you probably never happen again. But if you do it twice, then, it's probably going to happen a third time. So I'm sure I'll be back there next year. And the city where the start is, they've already offered to open the pool up for me before the race because it was Sunday, so I couldn't go swimming. But who knows? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next Easter. I might be doing a Roubaix Ironman, a pseudo Roubaix Ironman.
So when COVID hit and everybody went home to train, and we have seen how people are riding and running since everybody came back, right? Everybody's going so much faster, right? You're talking about Jan's record getting shattered last year in Kona, and I was just talking to David McNamee, and he goes, "Hey, you got all these 22, 23, 24-year-olds coming into the sport, Magnus and Sam Laidlaw, and they're changing the game, right? They're changing the game." Is that the way you look at it as well?
I mean, I do. I think science, I think just people's understanding of, as I said about Kona, I wasn't surprised about that time there because the course isn't overly challenging. What's challenging is the elements. We had no wind, so that helped a lot. And we had, after Tokyo, there's been a huge amount of understanding of heat and dealing with the heat. And obviously, everyone really has access to that. I mean, even I personally obviously had access to the team's information, probably didn't take it as seriously as I should have. But I really think that the biggest thing was that just didn't bother people as much as it has in the past. So the time doesn't really shock me. And even Roth, I mean, it's obviously incredibly impressive, but unless you're there, I mean, it's one thing to look at the guys who win and go, oh, wow. But I prefer, when you're obviously trying to judge what happened. I mean, I raced against Sam in Lanzarote. I mean, I saw the guy, how hard he was trying. I know what level the guy's at. And you look at someone like Patrick Langer, who, obviously can run a 2:30, proved that last year in Israel. And, by all accounts, the bike was not very difficult. And obviously he ran that fast. So for him to only lose 10 minutes to those guys and run 2:30, indicates that it was obviously a very fast day, because otherwise Patrick should have lost 20 minutes if those guys were that, So I just think it's a bit like the Tour de France. There's all these questions about the speed and how crazy this stuff is, but you just cannot compare these generations unless those people are in the event too, and I just don't really feel like the game's changed too much. I genuinely believe that Jan is still probably the standard on his best day, or Christian or Gustav. And yeah, it's just that you sort of need to see all these guys together to find out who that, to see that, there's just so many different factors these days with aerodynamics and tires and the dynamics of races just in general, and particularly when it's the bike that is changing everything. It's like that's the thing that just gets faster. Everything else relatively stays the same. I mean, what Magnus did was incredible, but what did he run? He ran 2:37 or 2:38.
Yeah.
That's been done by a lot of guys. It wasn't like he ran 2:29 off that. If he'd run 2:29, then I would have gone, holy mackerel, we are in a different age. But when you look at the bike, I think he rode a pretty normal bike, like suiting of probably the strongest guy in the sport on the bike. He's obviously not head and shoulders above anyone really on the bike because Sam was right there with him. So it's not like you've got a guy that's like 10 minutes in front of everyone. And yeah, he ran an incredible. I'm not taking away anything from his performance, but what I'm saying is I still think that someone like Jan is probably still the benchmark, or Gustav or Christian, or Magnus is probably right there beside them, obviously now. I really don't think the game's changed at all. I think that's just the top level. I think where there's a lot more is there's a lot more guys from, 2 or behind those guys, 5 down to say 30 that are all very close. Like people like Joe Skipper, people like Sam Laidlow, there's just a bunch of people, Max Newman's obviously knocking on the door of the top guys. There's just a bunch of pressure coming from that level. And I think that's the biggest change, the depth of that. I don't want to call them second tier guys because they're phenomenal, but you've got those 4 or 5 standout guys that are clearly probably still a step ahead of everyone else. But as far as has that level changed much? No, I don't believe it really has.
So you're turning, I think you turned 40, August 3rd, that coming up?
Next week,
turn 40.
Yeah.
And Jan obviously is over 40. We've got a number of folks over 40, and you guys are going faster than 40-year-olds have ever gone. How have you had to adapt to being older?
Well, I don't really think about it, to be honest. I mean,
you don't really think about it. You've only been in triathlon for 6 years or something, so you're sort of a young guy.
Yeah, as you say, I've never been injured, so that helps too.
Yes.
Wear and tear we're seeing from a lot of the older guys. That's the biggest challenge. They tend to, once they start getting injuries, they tend to continue to get them. For sure, we're taking things like that more seriously, though. I mean, we spent a lot of time yesterday over at the headquarters in London doing a lot more drills, things I've never done them really before, ever. Very basic ones, but doing ones that just showed me how unconnected I perhaps am, how much leakage I've got in my stride still, going through a weights routine, refining that, making sure that you're not just building on your strengths, you're also fixing up the gaps where you're weak. And because as you get older, obviously muscle degeneration is an issue. And I've never done any of these things. So, as much as I'd sort of like to start thinking, gosh, I've probably competed enough. Can I think about doing something else? The only reason I don't is because I feel like I've got so much more to improve. I've only just started swimming in the front pack, for crying out loud. Like I've got Hayden Wild in Andorra now. We train together all the time. He's a fantastic training partner for me. I mean, when you're training with a 22-year-old kid who's arguably the best in the sport at the moment, it's like being back in the rowing days. It's like we spend so much time together. Often I'm thinking, mate, look, I've got a family. I don't have like 2 hours to sit in the coffee shop after the swim this morning. Like I need to go home and see Wyatt and take him to the pump track or something, But that was the culture of rowing. We just spent our whole lives together. We did everything together at that age because you don't have the obligations. And Hayden wants to know what I'm doing every single day, and he's there. He finds a way to link up with whatever I've got going on. So of course, out of respect, and also because it helps me, I do my best to accommodate his training and what he does. And it's not easy to find the right training partner. Like it's difficult. And I've been so fortunate with my training partners over the years. And but yeah, Hayden Wild, I mean, that's a huge reason why I still feel like I've got a long way to improve, even at my age, and honestly, that's even more of a motivator because stuff these kids. We're still here, we're not going to let them have it, they got to earn it the same way we did, when we came in.
What's great with someone like Hayden is you're not competing with the guy, right? You're not in the same race
Yeah.
as he is so far, which is always nice when, when you're training with somebody, and obviously steel sharpens steel, but you sort of learn things from each other that maybe can help you beat them. At this point, you guys are in a perfect situation because he's Super League and Olympics and you're everything else.
Exactly. And, we talk about in our little squad, which is 2 of us, we've got to win everything. We've got to have every title. We want every single title. Come the end of next year, we want to have everything under in our stable. I don't want to have to do Super League, so he's going to have to deal with that in the Olympics. And I guess I've got a bit of I think the half worlds he can handle as well. So really that narrows down my role to one thing, which is nice. It's nice that he respects the old guy to just do one and he'll take the other 3. So, you're spot on, right, Bob? I mean, we don't clash. We don't, there's no clash there. And our strengths, help the other guy. I mean, his bike is the one thing that he hasn't really worked on. Obviously, his running his talent is insane. Some of the sessions, he's got his buddy, Sam Tenner there as well, who's been staying with him and training with us as well. I mean, he's been 5th in the last few Diamond Leagues behind, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and he's running 3:30s for the 1500. I mean, the stuff I see them do in training. I mean, I train with Hannah, with Hayden's girlfriend, who, female ITU is about my pace.
Right,
it's perfect
exactly.
when we're at the track. Obviously, other sessions, longer runs, and whatever we do as the boys do together. But and Hayden and I and swimming, we obviously do all together, and then on the bike, obviously Hayden's always with me. But we really complement each other well. We're not competitors and with each other, and we really drive each other. I mean, we, it's a bit like, it was when I trained with Froomey and G, and still do, obviously. And why I think I'm so consistent, in Ironman, as we just said, like I'm always, no matter what the field is, I'm always up there. I'm right. Competitive, and it's because you don't want to suck. You don't want to go and look your training partners in the eye when you've worked hard together to win something or to to succeed, and go into a poor performance. And it's the same with Hayden. When I go to a race, I don't want to have the shame of going back to him and saying, I didn't give it all I had, or I had a bad day, or whatever else. It's, you give it everything you got and perform. And I know that he's, I mean, you only got to watch ways he's racing. I mean, that's just really inspiring for me every time I go to a race. When your training partners are winning everything, it's you've of course you got to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. So it's great.
So Hayden have you seen improvement on the bike from you working with him?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just his endurance, I mean, he's a couple of hours, he used to get tired. Now he can, a few hours before he starts to waver a bit. And, I mean, he's been on his time trial bike more. I've told him not a lot. Everyone knows I don't ride it a lot, once or twice a week max, but he's certainly, been on that more often. And, he's starting to talk about opportunities that he can utilize the bike as as more of a weapon. It's really exciting to see someone, and he just wants it. He wants to improve. And it's just so great to see someone who's at that level, confiding in you, talking about their vulnerabilities or their weaknesses. I've been so blooming fortunate my whole life that the athletes I've been surrounded by. I really have, and the highest level, but the side of it that I've seen, it's one thing to watch on TV. That's all great. I mean, that's obviously amazing, inspiring for millions of people, but to see what they go through in training, I mean, that is such a privilege. And getting to watch Hayden is just as invaluable as what it was like, with Chris and G, or, Tom, or, Pavel, any of the guys that I've trained with in the team, Richie Port, etc. over the years. It's really a real honor to share that with him.
When you train with guys like that, because people from the outside never get to see that, you get to see their vulnerability. You get to see them crack a little bit in training where other people don't. that's sort of a cool situation to be in, where you get to know them not just as people, but also you find out what their strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah, well, I guess yes. It's also seeing how they deal with those moments is what
Yeah.
I think sets the champions apart. Like seeing how Froome, when he blows up in a session or on a training day, or he's just out of gas or G or whatever, and watching that perseverance to get through that. That is what sets them apart at the end of the day. Everyone thinks that it's all easy for all these guys. I mean, they have the bad moments. They have to race sick. They have to race hurt. They have to, like the same way everyone else does, and they find a way. They find a way to get it done. And Hayden as well. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, some of the run sessions, particularly run sessions or swim sessions that he does, and the fatigue level he has, and then he can't get through the next session, or he has to just gut it out or whatever it is. But seeing how he deals with that is he's a real champion. Obviously, he's winning, and seeing how he deals with those difficult days is when you learn most about these guys. That's for sure. On the good days, it's easy. It's easy for everyone.
So Cam, when you look back at your Ironman career, what was your best Ironman? The one that maybe meant the most to you? It's only been 30 of them.
Copenhagen. So. Yeah. Copenhagen was pretty special. It was White's first one. So, yeah. I mean, cool. Italy, Hawaii. Italy was the first time I found out it was in Fallon's belly. So then it's like, this is a real job. I got to earn money. Like this is how I'm going to feed this little guy. And at the time, my contracts actually were up with Pinarello and Castelli and a bunch of them. I actually re-signed everything before Kona that year. The very long-term deals, well, basically till the end of my career. It gave me the confidence that I could bring up my son the way I wanted to bring him up. And so that was really significant. Copenhagen was really important because it was the first one he went to, where he knew sort of what I did. And
you won.
You obviously wanted, and I won, and also the way I did it. I planned sort of the execution of that run. I wanted, I think I spoke to you before, I watched Kipchoge win the Olympics. I watched how he kicked in that last 5K. I wanted to get Lionel close to me. It was more about laying a psychological blow to my opposition for Kona that year, that race, like letting Lionel come and then going, and, taking that 3 or 4 or 5 minutes in that last few miles, Obviously, unfortunately, wheels sort of fell off the rails a bit after that with Kona being cancelled. And it's really taken until now for me to get things back together, because that was quite disheartening. And then not really knowing how things would go last year. Trying to muffle my way through balancing both sports for the first time, didn't really work out. So yeah, those three races, but definitely Copenhagen was a really important one for me, because I had a good preparation for that and I was able to really execute on it. And obviously it was just a shame that the rest of the year didn't pan out the way we planned. but
what was great about that was
things, it's not a big deal.
And when you look at the splits, the 49-minute swim and 4:02 bike and 2:49 marathon, 7:46, that's the perfect race, right? That every aspect of that was spot on.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is that's still the level of the sport. On a course like that, there's, that's sort of as fast as the fast guys can go. So I know that I can still be there, and it's just a matter of doing that when the lights shine the brightest, which is the World Championships, and that's something I've never done. And hopefully with 40 years of experience behind me, I'll be able to finally figure out how to execute that come September 10.
I love it. Hey, Cam, thanks for taking time at the airport. Always a treat to get to chat with you. Congrats on everything you're doing, and happy birthday, my man. 40 years old. I still got like 32 years on you. You're a young guy.
I mean, at this point, there was no point coming back to sport if you're not going to do it, basically till the wheels fall off. I mean, I'm certainly not going to hang around when I shouldn't be hanging around. But why I still believe I can improve, I'm going to be here. And at the moment, that's how I feel. I certainly feel like that for at least another year. But of course, I just take it year by year at this point. And, there's obviously a lot of exciting things I'd love to do when I'm done. But I want to get the most out of this body before I hang it up. So
I was also
excited what's ahead.
I was also reading something that you were like what, you were a low handicap golfer when you were 10 years old or something like that.
Yeah, I was off about 10 when I was 10, and I'm still off about 10. So yeah, I just haven't played much since then. So but no, I'm certainly not good enough to play on the seniors tour. I think I prefer to give my body a rest next. I think moving into some sort of the sports, something within the sports team or organization or management, or obviously the finance world has always been a huge interest to me. But yeah, I'll be busy doing something. I can't sit still. I think that's pretty obvious. I think to say that I'm looking forward to slowing down,
No,
obviously everyone would know that I'm lying. So yeah, no, I just get the most out of every single day, and I want to do that till I take my last breath.
love it. Cam, thank you, buddy. Always a pleasure. Have a great birthday. Give our best to
Thanks,
Fallon
Bob.
and Wyatt.
We'll do. We'll see you in Nice.
I'll see you in Nice, brother. Cam Wurf has been our guest again. Breakfast with Bob, our Not Quite Conan edition. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will catch you next time. See ya.